Imagine it 300,000 kilometers every second, fast enough to wrap around Earth 7 times before your mind can even finish the thought. At that speed, oceans blur into a single sheen. Continents become a smear of color, and the planet is no longer a world, but a bead of light. And yet in physics, this isn't just fast. It's the ceiling, the hard edge of reality. The speed of light, nature's ultimate speed limit, where acceleration stops being a simple act of pushing harder and starts becoming something stranger, a negotiation with time itself. Light needs no fuel. It meets no friction in the vacuum. It doesn't fight space the way we do. It simply glides pure motion, pure message, crossing the dark like an arrow released from a perfectly drawn bow. For centuries, it has been our symbol of the impossible made real. The standard by which we measure the word swift. But here's the paradox that changes everything. Even that speed is too slow, not in the way a machine is slow, not in the way a system fails. Slow in a more unsettling, almost humiliating way, slow compared to the proportions of the universe. Because once you truly face cosmic distance, the fastest thing in nature begins to feel like a crawl, like a turtle inching across an endless desert of black. Start small, and the vertigo begins immediately. The sunlight warming your skin left the sun more than 8 minutes ago. What you call now is already delayed. The sky is never current, it's always history. And if you reach for the nearest star beyond our solar system, Proxima Centauri, a neighbor in the gentlest sense of the word, it still sits 4.2 light years away. 4 years at the speed of light. 4 years without stopping, without turning, without a single breath of mercy from distance. A journey longer than a college degree, just to reach the closest lamp in the cosmic night. And that's the moment the universe tilts. Because if the very fastest messenger that can exist needs years to cross the first step beyond our backyard, then what does travel even mean in a cosmos, where galaxies are not miles away, but millions of years away? This is where the dream of rushing into the stars becomes something else entirely. Not a plan, a confrontation. Stay in our own neighborhood a little longer, and the illusion of closeness dissolves. In the solar system, distance isn't measured in kilometers, the way we measure roads on Earth. It's measured in light time, because even here, speed has a delay baked into it. If the sun changed in an instant, if something catastrophic erupted across its surface, you wouldn't know right away. The warning would arrive 8 minutes late, riding in on the same gentle beam that brightens your morning. Mars, the world we speak of as next door, can drift 20 light minutes away, depending on where it sits in its orbit. Pluto, distant cold, barely clinging to the edge of what we call home, lies more than 5 light hours out. Even inside our own family of worlds, the scale is already strange enough to make the mind wobble. And then we step out of the backyard. We look up and the Milky Way stops being a band of pale mist and becomes a structure, an island of stars 100,000 light years wide. A disk so vast that if you fired a beam of light from one rim to the other, it would arrive not next week, not next year, but in an age so distant, our calendars would look like ancient relics. The simple act of sending a message across your own galaxy becomes a project that outlives empires. Now, imagine trying to travel it. Even at light speed, crossing the Milky Way takes longer than the entire span of recorded human history by orders of magnitude. And the Milky Way isn't special. It's just one spiral among countless others, one city of stars among a universe of cities. So, we turn toward the nearest great neighbor, the Andromeda galaxy. A brilliant swarm of 1 trillion suns hanging in the same dark like a promise, 2.5 million light years away. Even if you rode a beam of light itself, the journey would take 2.5 million years, long enough for civilizations to rise, transform into something unrecognizable, and vanish into dust. Long enough for oceans to rearrange continents, long enough for new species to inherit the Earth and forget we ever existed. And Andromeda is only one member of our larger cosmic neighborhood, the local group. Dozens upon dozens of galaxies, bound together by gravity, drifting through the dark like lanterns in a silent current. But the local group is not the world. It's a single street corner in a metropolis you cannot see all at once, because beyond it lie structures so enormous they don't feel like places anymore. They feel like the universe learning how to build with scale itself. Galaxies gathered into clusters, clusters braided into superclusters, and superclusters stitched into vast cosmic patterns that stretch for hundreds of millions of light years. This is the point where the word far stops being useful. Here distance becomes an abyss. Follow the thread of structure outward, and the universe begins to reveal its architecture like pulling back from a single glowing window to discover an entire city, then a continent, then a planet, until the very idea of zooming out becomes a kind of freefall. Our local group, our modest collection of nearby galaxies, is only a small knot in a far larger flow. We are carried inside a grand gravitational basin, often described as a supercluster-scale realm, stretching across hundreds of millions of light years. The numbers stop sounding like measurements and start sounding like spells. 500 million light years across. A distance so large that if you began your journey when the dinosaurs first stepped onto Earth and traveled at the speed of light without rest, without pause, without error, you still would not be halfway across. And even that is not the universe. It's only the part we can see. Because there is a deeper limit, a boundary not made of walls or steel, but of time itself, the observable universe. It spans roughly 93 billion light years in diameter, not because it has existed long enough for light to travel that far, but because space has been stretching while the light was on its way. A cosmic trick of geometry and time. A universe that grows even as we try to measure it. And here the vertigo sharpens into something colder. The universe is not just big, it is expanding. And some of it is expanding away from us faster than light can ever reach. Not because anything is breaking physics by moving through space too quickly, but because space itself is swelling quietly, relentlessly carrying distant regions away, like leaves on a widening river. That means there are places, real places filled with galaxies and stars, and whatever strange stories unfold there that we will never see. Not with better rockets, not with perfect engines, not with 1,000 years of technological miracles. Their light will never arrive. Their future will unfold beyond our horizon, forever sealed behind a boundary written into the fabric of reality. This is the moment the dream of interstellar travel becomes something darker than difficulty. It becomes limitation. The speed of light, once the ultimate symbol of motion and progress, starts to look like a leash. A rule that doesn't merely slow us down but defines the size of the cage we live in. And the irony is almost cruel. We built our understanding of the universe on light. We measure distance in light years. We read the cosmos by the ancient photons that finally reach our eyes. We made light the language of exploration, but while we name it as a limit, the universe keeps growing silently, indifferently expanding the distance faster than the messenger can cross it. So even if tomorrow we built a ship that could travel at a significant fraction of light speed, even if we overcame the first breathtaking engineering barriers, we would only be stepping into a deeper ocean of problems. Because at that edge, the universe does not simply ask, "How fast can you go?" It asks something far more unsettling. What are you willing to become to get there? At the edge of these distances, speed stops being a number and becomes a transformation. Einstein saw it first not as a science fiction twist, but as a consequence of the universe's bookkeeping. The faster you move, the more time itself begins to warp. Near the speed of light, clocks do not agree. Inside the ship, the crew breathes, sleeps, argues, laughs, life unfolding at its normal rhythm. But outside, the universe keeps a different tempo. Seconds stretch, years slip. A voyage to the nearest star could feel almost humane for the traveler's years instead of lifetimes. And yet returning home would be like stepping out of a sealed room to find the world aged beyond recognition. Friends gone. Languages shifted. Borders redrawn. The mission becomes a quiet one-way wager against your own era. Space travel turns into time travel, not by magic but by math. By the simple fact that the universe refuses to let everyone share the same now. And then there is the price. To push matter toward light speed demands energy on a scale that borders on the obscene. 10% of light speed already drinks from the output of civilizations. Faster than that, the cost climbs not linearly but exponentially, as if the universe charges interest for ambition. At some point, you are no longer fueling a ship. You are trying to pay a debt measured in the brightness of stars. But even if you had that power, some miraculous engine that could turn mountains into thrust, you would still be crossing a medium that only looks empty. At those velocities, a speck of dust becomes a bullet. A grain of sand becomes an explosion. A collision with something you never saw, never could see, would arrive without warning and end everything in an instant. And space is not silent either. It is threaded with radiation, high-energy particles, solar storms, the long cosmic drizzle of forces that corrode bodies and electronics alike. Even stranger are the things we barely understand, the unseen scaffolding of dark matter that shapes galaxies, the invisible components of the cosmos that do not glow, do not speak in light, yet outweigh everything we can touch. We would be hurling ourselves through a reality we still can't fully name. And beneath all of it, another unknown waits, quiet, human, unavoidable. What does it do to a mind to live inside a moving coffin for years, watching the same faces, hearing the same recycled air, knowing that no rescue can reach you, and that home is not just far, but slipping away in time? At that point, the obstacle is no longer engineering. It is the universe asking whether we are built to endure the distance outside and within. And so the imagination reaches for a cheat code. If distance is the enemy, then don't cross it, remove it. Don't race through the ocean of space. Fold the ocean itself. This is where the old science fiction dream returns, with a colder, more mathematical face, the warp drive. Not a ship breaking the universe's speed limit, but a ship refusing to play the game of speed at all. The idea, first given a serious theoretical shape by Miguel Alcubierre, is almost poetic. You don't move the vessel faster than light. You move space. Compress the fabric of space-time in front of you. Expand it behind you. Create a kind of traveling bubble, an eddy in the geometry of reality, so the ship remains locally at rest while the universe slides around it. To the crew inside, nothing violates physics in their immediate neighborhood. But to the outside observer, the bubble surfs across distances that should take centuries, as if the cosmos itself is being pulled like a curtain. It sounds like salvation, until you read the fine print, written in the language of energy. To make that bubble, the equations demand something we have never truly held in our hands: negative energy density, exotic matter that behaves like the opposite of everything we know. We can glimpse hints of negative effects in subtle quantum phenomena, but scaling that into a stable engine is like trying to build a bridge out of fog. And even in the most generous versions of the math, the amounts required become absurd, astronomical. Sometimes so large, they feel less like engineering requirements and more like a warning. And if warp is a wave, wormholes are a tunnel. A shortcut through space-time, two distant regions stitched together by a throat, like folding the universe and pinning two faraway points into the same room. A journey of millions of light years reduced to a step. It's allowed on paper. General relativity doesn't forbid it. But paper is not the cosmos. A wormhole, if it exists, is likely to be violently unstable, collapsing faster than a thought. Holding it open again demands that same elusive, exotic energy. And even if you could stabilize the geometry, you invite the most dangerous kind of complication. Causality paradox, time bending back on itself like a serpent eating its tail. It begins to feel as if the universe has built its own firewall, not to stop us from looking, but to stop us from going. So where does that leave us? Creatures born on a thin film of air, dreaming of crossing a universe that seems designed to resist being crossed. It's tempting to call it a tragedy. To see the speed of light as a cruel limit, a cosmic taunt, an invitation to imagine paired with a permanent refusal to arrive. But there is another way to read this one that changes the feeling in your chest. Because the universe did not promise us travel. It offered us something else, understanding. Every star you see is already a message from the past. The light in the night sky is not out there in real time. It is history arriving late, carrying the autobiography of distant suns. When you look at Andromeda, you are not looking across space alone. You are looking across time at photons that began their journey before our species, had cities before we had writing, before we even knew to ask the question. And in a strange way that makes astronomy the most intimate kind of exploration. We cannot touch those galaxies, but we can read them. We can decode the chemistry hidden in their spectra. We can reconstruct collisions that happened before the Earth had forests. We can measure the expansion of space itself and realize with a dizzying calm that there are regions we will never reach, never see, yet can still infer through the shape of the cosmos we inhabit. That is not nothing. That is a kind of voyage. And perhaps this is the deeper truth beneath the dream of starships. The human need is not only to arrive somewhere else, but to widen the mind until it can hold the scale of what is real. To stand on a small world and still feel the gravity of distances that make light seem slow. To accept that we are tiny and not be diminished by it. Because cosmic vertigo is not just fear, it is awe. It is the moment you realize the universe is larger than your instincts can handle, and yet your curiosity still reaches for it anyway. The cosmos may be too vast, too hostile, too relentlessly expanding for our impatient bodies to conquer. But it is not beyond the reach of thought. And as long as we keep looking up, measuring, imagining, questioning, something in us is already traveling. Not through space, but through meaning,